There we go.
Thank you. That's helpful. Okay, for the next slide. Okay, so the three of us have kind of worked through looking at how we can make this program reactive to everybody's needs at the moment. So we've got Sophia, who's continuous quality improvement leader at Hertfordshire Partnership University, and myself as head of quality improvement at York and Scarborough, and Sid, who's the brains behind all this, who's associate director at NHS Elect. He shakes his head. He definitely is. So we're going to host today's session. Thanks, Sid. So just to give a little bit of a talk about the models of improvement. So as we all know, our aim for all of us really, isn't it, is to we want everybody to do improvement every day, that it becomes everybody's business, and I think that's where we're all trying to aim to become. Most providers nowadays will have a central improvement function, that's responsible for quality improvement. It's no simple task. We've got huge organisations, and as the demand for QI grows in the NHS, that becomes a harder and harder task. So we have this model on the screen which shows, we can either, there are two ways of looking at how we can have strategies for quality improvement. We can either be a very dependent organisation where our improvement teams are responsible for all the quality improvement work. They're very hands-on, and in the application of QI methods, that's really tricky to have because of the demand on the service. And actually, we know the benefits of it not being owned by a central improvement team, that when it's owned outside of that team, the sustainability is much, much better. On the other side of the spectrum, we have where we have the QI team absolutely building that capability so that we sorry, I can't see because I've got the photos over the screen actually, but basically that this independence, that we want to grow more people around that team so that we have more people outside of that team who are coaching teams. They've got the capability and capacity, and they are coaching others to be independent and improvement practitioners. So it kind of grows that capability in the organisation beyond that team. And actually, that's where we need to be, is that independency, because that then achieves that. We want everybody to do improvement every day, and it becomes much easier. I suspect that we all look at this spectrum and think we probably sit somewhere along that spectrum. I bet we're all slightly in different places if we were to place ourselves on that spectrum. So that's just to talk about that. And I'm going to go on to the next slide, which talks about the positives and negatives of that. So the dependency side, there are some benefits. You can have expert support solutions faster. We have dedicated time, don't we, as QI teams to do the work, and it's sometimes easier to allocate resources. Just move that, thank you. But also that we know that if we're independent as organisations, that supports that development of a culture of continuous improvement. We need not just that team talking about improvement, we need it to be right across the organisation to make that shift that we need to make. It becomes everybody's job, and it's improved by the services. And it reduces that requirement for that central QI team. If you can imagine how big that team would need to get if we didn't move into an independence model, we're just not going to achieve that change moving forward. There are some negatives for both of those arguments for both, but I think we all kind of realise that we have to do something different moving forward. We can't just grow bigger and bigger teams. We know it takes a long time to develop that QI capability. It needs a long-term approach. It requires a strategic approach, and it requires that development outside of that team to grow those individuals that we want to have to support that function. So it's got pros and cons on both sides. What we do know is that as a role of a coach in an organisation, so the blue people that you can see is anyone who's doing improvements. So we know that we have lots of staff. Some people have a little bit of knowledge, some people have very little knowledge at all. But we need these people to start doing we need to start doing some of that improvement work. And then on the other side, which is the yellow, we have this nice central improvement team of experts that focus on training, focus on education, coaching people, data. And then what we recognise is we have this gap in the middle between the sort of frontline staff, central improvement team, and what do we do to fill that gap? And that's very much about having the development of these QI coaches who are frontline individuals, who are champions of quality improvements, who expand that network beyond the quality improvement team so they can support their staff, encourage others to do quality improvement, have a set of skills that enable them to be able to do that work. And that they are friendly and familiar faces, that people will be approachable to support people moving forward. So I think that's where we're all, to create that independency and not dependency. That's the direction that a lot of people have moved in, which has seen success. So that just gives you a little bit of outline for that. Thanks, Sid.
Problem with being one of the co-organizers is that there's so many pop-ups on Zoom that you can't actually unmute yourself. So it's a very poor design. Sometimes it's great for other things. Hi everyone, I'm Sid, one of the co-conveners of the Coaching Improvement SIG. And as Kerry was saying, there was this somewhat of a cultural shift or an organizational shift that's needed where, we're perhaps historically, perhaps even now, quite reliant on improvement teams or central improvement functions or people in similar roles to kind of roll their sleeves up and do a lot of the dirty work of improvement. I know historically in some of my roles in quality improvement, I've been that very person. I remember working on for a QI team, but we were doing a lot of work on an assessment unit, and we were looking at rapid transfers of care from assessment to wards, and they've been talking about this checklist and talking about it for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I just thought at some point, no one's going to do this. I'm just going to do it. And so I wrote the rapid assessment protocol, or rapid transfer protocol. I'm probably not the best placed person to do that. I didn't work on that unit and didn't really have any kind of clout in that particular setting. So I was an outside party doing it, and it didn't really come from them. Although they knew that something was needed, it was kind of externally imposed. So it wasn't a very successful idea. Even though I had the time and space to do it. And that's partially a reflection on my approach, but partially a reflection on the fact that hands-on improvement, that kind of dependent model, isn't always the best place for us as improvers. And we do need to shift away from that and perhaps enable the people in the actual context of that acute assessment unit to come up with this themselves organically. And that's not just to say, let's train these people and that's enough in QI. These people knew QI. They just didn't have the capacity, or they weren't given the permission or the time, etc., to do that. We know the definition of QI really well, don't we? And so kind of like this Banksy painting, I don't have the rights for this, so apologies. But we knew in my current organization, which I joined a few years ago, we knew we needed to let go of improvement. We knew that we held it very centrally and we were very good at that and we were very well respected. Where I work in Central London Community Healthcare Trust, but we needed to relinquish control of QI and distribute leadership and agency for change within all of the services. Where I work, it's the largest community trust in the UK, something like 5,500 staff, something like several hundred different service lines within that. So it's a very big, complex organization. We don't have the reach, and we knew that we needed to encourage people within those services to organically do improvement themselves. Now that's quite a big feat, but we knew we needed to do it. And so kind of reflecting on the journey of QI, I focused here just on QI coaching, not QI holistically, just for now, but reflecting on the role of QI coaching in CLCH. When we kind of started our QI journey just around a decade ago, there was a very small team at the time. There's actually just one person, and although they're absolutely brilliant and they were doing some great work, they were mostly focused on QI practitioner level, QSA kind of level of training, really building people's knowledge of technical improvement tools, but not necessarily on the wider contextual factors and systems that are needed to be able to empower people to lead and implement sustainable change. So although this was, there was a lot of passion there and a lot of enthusiasm, and we saw, the profile of QI go up, sadly that wasn't sustained, and a lot of the work that was led through this year and several years after it didn't really pan out as much as we'd like. And so in 2019, this is when this kind of idea came of how do we go away from that dependent approach to build independence. And that's where a bid went into Q, and we led a piece of work on QI coaching, the quality coach development program. That's when we started to work that idea up and really realize it. And we began to really understand what structures are needed and put in place. Thankfully, we managed to get a more sizable QI team. That's obviously a key lever there. There was one person, and this increased to about 8 people at the time, and that was really helpful at embedding these structures, being present in formal forums, having those conversations with senior leadership, etc., to start to begin the conversation about QI coaching. Through the quality coach development program process and the kind of development of that resource and the iteration of the content, we were the first pilot site of that material as we kind of led on the co-design. And so we began QI coaching, but what we actually did was we started small and went with those kind of innovators, thinking about, Everard's diffusion of innovation, the curve of innovation. We said to ourselves, firstly, we need to get our own house in order. We have 8 improvement people in our team. They have varying degrees of experience in QI, some very extensive, some more limited, although they were still very good. And we probably should be on the same page about what we mean by QI coaching and our ethos and our spirit around that, how we approach teams. We're not project managers, we're coaches. And that was a bit of a mindset shift for ourselves. So going through this program as delegates of the Quality Coach Development Program, or there are other programs available, that was helpful for us to really get our house in order, like I said, but also we started to tap the shoulders of people we knew and trusted, our kind of close friends, people who had already got the QI bug and were super passionate about QI. We got them in that first cohort as well to really test the content, but also to start testing the feasibility of this quality coach role. There were frontline clinicians. How much time do they realistically need? What are the leadership challenges they will face? What's the response from their clinical colleagues to this role? What does this role look like in a formal role? What's the relationship of the coach to the QI team? How much support do they need? How will we provide CPD? All these questions were emerging for us, and we didn't know the answers. And so by piloting the program and doing this on a very small scale, we had something like 6 or 7, I think 7 people in that initial cohort. They were very honest with us and told us what the challenges were, and we were able to kind of understand and explore that together. And so that was really helpful for us in our journey of QI coaching, but really also understanding structures that are needed, but also the benefit that these individuals can bring. And so we were doing this in a very deliberate way, getting that honest feedback, looking at the improvement work that they were doing, and then hopefully being able to kind of use that as a test case and a testimonial and a case study for further spread and adoption of the program and of the quality coach role in my organization. Now, the year after that, we obviously built confidence in our work. We were kind of in a stronger position, and we started to spread to the services in my organization where we knew that we had some leadership buy-in already. So we're not going at the hard sell, we're going for the easier sell first, going to specific divisions and specific directorates and kind of saying, this is a new role for us. It's something that the NHS is really advocating for. It comes from this work from Bob Lloyd for building capability in the NHS. So it's really kind of a justified role, that type of thing, really kind of explaining what the coach will do and maybe being strategic about what improvement that they can support. So I'll get onto this, but we asked our coaches to support one key strategic priority for the trust at that time, which was really helpful in selling this role. So we had 14 people on our second cohort, not a large number. There were some teething issues. We had some people on it who didn't complete the program because they weren't the right fit for the role and they needed more experience about QI. The importance, as you'll all appreciate, is that to be a good QI coach, you need to be credible. You need to have good experience of QI, including failure as well as success. And the people that had gone on this program, we went with kind of people who had the QI bug, but sometimes maybe were running before they could walk. And so we supported them beyond the program and then obviously got them onto the future cohorts instead, there were some teething issues. Some of the other teething issues, like I said before, it's about leadership support. So every person who is a QI coach in CLCH has ring-fence time to be a QI coach. QI is part of everybody's role, is everybody's business, as Kerry said. And what we don't want is to kind of reinforce the idea that QI is an extra or an adjunct to the day job. And so we needed to make sure that anyone who went on this program had that protected ring-fence time to be a coach. Now, in the lead up to this program, our exec director, Elizabeth, who was the director of improvement for CLCH, had some honest and difficult conversations, some really productive conversations at a senior level to talk about this role and what we need and a kind of case for this. Obviously explaining that this is still a test for us and we're not going big and bold straight away. We were able to secure 1 day a week of ring fence time for these individuals, which, being candid, is too much. So we were kind of having this two-way conversation right from the offset, saying we don't want to ask too much or too little of these people. They need time to coach. They need to, if they have a caseload of QI projects or QI work, 2 or 3 projects, plus time for CPD, connecting with the QI team, connecting with their peers, you don't need more than a half day for that a week. That's plenty. And so we went back to them and were honest and said, you've given us too much. What we'd rather have is 2 at half time than 1 at 2 for half a day, half day a week, than 1 for 1 day a week. So, we can kind of leverage different services then and different experiences and really kind of capitalize on the QI bug and provide that linear progression for people from, bronze, silver, gold being QI coach, silver being QI practitioner, bronze being kind of basic awareness of QI. So there were teething issues. And we kind of had that really open and honest conversation with people as we went through the implementation of the QI coach role for CLCH. Looking back to last year, this was when we ran our 3rd cohort of the Quality Coach Development Programme. At this point, it was just about to be published. It's now, as hopefully as I've banged on about it a lot, hopefully you know that this resource is now freely available for anyone, and you can Google it and it'll be the top Google hit, and you can go on the Q Community website and find the resources there to run your own program. But we were delivering the 3rd cohort last year, and we didn't tap people on the shoulder this time. So years 1 and 2, we kind of went to our trusted friends and the people that we knew had the QI bug and kind of already on our radar. This year we went to people who we didn't know that well, but we'd had some good QI experience from the past or kind of off their own back. And that was really interesting for us in kind of spreading the role and being able to really see what the challenges are in a different way. And because this had been done for 2 years now, by the 3rd year, the hesitancy that we were seeing in those first years was starting to diminish, and leadership who were not so sure about QI or not so sure about QI coaching were now slowly coming on side, and they were hearing from their peers, so, divisional leaders, divisional directors, clinical directors, clinical business unit managers, etc., hearing from their peers that this is actually a good thing, and actually it's been really helpful for them in their tackling their strategic improvement priorities. More on that in a moment. So that was really helpful. Again, there were wobbles. We're not going to say that this was perfect. It's never going to be perfect. And I've got some pointers after. We've got a really good activity in a moment, but after that, I'll reflect on some pointers that I've picked up on after doing this for a few years now. And hopefully that might help you to address these wobbles before you wobble. I know some of you, hi Claire, I know some of you are currently implementing the Quality Coach program or something similar in your trust. So hopefully as you do that, you can maybe pick out some of these things, as well as we're talking about the benefits today. It's just helpful to kind of address those wobbles. And you know what, if you address those, then you won't get the headache later on, and you won't get the pushback later on, because you're alleviating the issue before it even exists, or at least mitigating. And then here we are today now. 4th cohort starts in CLCH next month. I'm astounded by how much this QI coach role has helped to build the profile of QI, help to raise awareness of it and understanding of it, access to support. We're seeing our capacity for QI support massively increase. Our whole-time equivalent in the central QI team hasn't changed. In fact, I'm now part-time. That's through my own choice. But the team hasn't grown, but the amount of work we're supporting as a kind of QI one of my people that I supervise as a QI coach in my trust calls it her QI family. You know, the QI coach is the QI team, the QI faculty working together. We're seeing the spread of QI much further and faster than we'd ever anticipate. And actually now the question for us is, do we need to be bolder in what we're doing? You know, we've had 15 people, 14 people, 13 people on these cohorts. And then this year we're saying, should we push out a bit further and go for 25, knowing that that's kind of a good cap in terms of the program that we run. So really positive. And now we're kind of asking ourselves, can we do more in terms of strategic approach? So our QI coach is supporting that kind of bottom-up improvement, the kind of ground-up work that we often see and that often we've been supporting ourselves. Now as a QI team, we're released from that work a bit to be able to say, can we be more supportive of specific work? So for instance, patient safety incident response framework, PSERF, we're able to support in a way that we never would have been able to even last year because of this capacity that we're seeing and this kind of expertise out in the real Gemba, or in the services. So that's been really positive. Still not perfect. I never would say that it is. I'm always happy to talk warts and all, as I know Kerry and Sophia are, but real kind of, for me, a real positive journey. And talking about journeys, Sophia, I'm going to hand over to you to talk about this, if that's okay.
Brilliant, lovely. Thank you, Sid. So as you've already heard from Sid, it's a journey, and we thought we'll probably bring everybody's attention to this framework, which is from Health Foundation, and also to share a little bit about my journey in terms of how we are kind of implementing it through this framework. So, you know, like Sid, we started our QI journey only in 2019, and we use this framework to get ourselves where we are in 4 years' time. At the very onset, we started our QI practitioner and coaches program together. And that was our biggest learning, that we fell flat on our grounds by doing the coaches alongside the practitioner. But it was something that the board wanted us to do, and we signed up to it, but we had a bit of a learning. And of course, the pandemic helped a little bit to pause that QI coaches program for us a little bit. So I'd highly recommend that build your infrastructure for the bottoms-up QI for your organization. If you're thinking about the coaches program, don't dive straight into the coaches program straight off, because you need that sort of fertile soil of improvement, knowledge, and practitioners on the ground to be able to then get into the coaching sort of domain. So what we've done since then, so of course we launched our practitioner program in 2019. We've got a good infrastructure. Like Sid, we are a very small team of only 5. Our staffing is about 5,000 staff, but we deliver across 4 counties. So that's our biggest challenge, rather than just the staff, because of the services we sort of deliver in mental health. But as part of our relaunch, what we've done is we've actually used this framework to relaunch our coaches program. So not our QI program, but our coaches program. So last year, sometime early part of last year, we went back to the execs, we went back to the board, we gave our proposal about what we wanted to do. We got some board sign up in terms of this was important and relevant to the organization, and we assessed our maturity at that point. I think having the NHS impact around April time was really a blessing to us, because that really helped us pivot that argument back to our board to say, actually, this is an important thing for us to now get onto the journey, rather than stalling it any further. We are not where we are, and we need to do something about it. So that really strengthened our sort of sign up and securing that board support. What we did differently this time than what we did previously is that we got our sign up from the leadership team for all the staff who were in senior leaders role, but had completed the QI practitioner program. So, you know, the whole coaches program, you'd have to teach the QI tools. We wanted to gain some momentum and quick wins. So we almost had the sign up of staff who already had enough of QI knowledge, were running QI projects on the ground, and were now kind of maturing to that next level, because obviously the leadership role was almost enabling them. And that's where we went. We went into that wider organizations within within the trust to see who is out there, who's doing what work they're doing, and how can we get those staff excited to come on with our journey. Your step 2 is really important. So spend that time. As Sid said, they had their exec director having those difficult conversations. We had to do the same. Our launch was launched with our exec director. Our exec director attended every engagement session with myself, for all the coaches who signed up to it. So really important to see that visibility of your board investing the time in taking this forward. Where are we now? We are at around the level 4. We've only just launched it in April, so we are building that skills and ability of those practitioners in their coaching skills. And one of the things that we've kind of invested, and again, that's the investment of the trust and the board. We are taking all our 26 coaches through the EMCC Foundation coaching for QI program, which gives them that coaching skills to do their job correctly. So we're not pushing and you need to start coaching a project tomorrow. Let's get them skills, give them enough confidence to be able to coach, with a model and an approach, and then move forward. So really useful framework. And I know Sid has shared it in the chat, the whole paper. If you're at the start of your journey, use this framework, because that will give you some kind of a baseline to work with your execs and the teams that you are working with. So I'll pause myself there, and we're going to sort of stop what we've done ourselves, the 3 of us. And like I said, it's not perfect. It's still a journey for us. We have only just relaunched it last year in April. We have a lot to learn and a lot to fall flat, but there's a lot of useful things that you could pick up as you go along in your journey. So what we wanted to do next is just to kind of, move us on to the next bit, where I think is giving you all some time, as sort of groups, to go into the breakout rooms and just think through a little bit, from what you heard from Kerry, Sid, and myself. Where are you with your improvement journey on that framework that we shared as a general? And then where are you with your coaching journey, within your organization? And if so, what are some of your enablers? What has helped you to get to wherever you are in your maturity? What's stopping you to get to that next level, or what will be your challenges to get to that next level of maturity for you within your organization, and what support you might need to get to that next level? And what's exciting things coming your horizon? Like, for us, like I said, the PISA was an exciting thing. We needed to get our teeth into it quite quickly. That was the exciting bit. How can we blend our practitioners with the coaches in PISA? And we've used that as a pivot to get to that next level, that we can start embedding some of these new coaches who are getting skilled up, align them to PISA projects, because that's already on the horizon. We need to report on it, and so forth. What are some of those exciting things locally for you that you could pivot yourself, that's going to enable you to get to your journey where you need to go to? Yeah, does that make sense to everybody? So we're going to put you all into the breakout rooms, roughly 20 minutes. So Maria's going to help us with the breakout rooms. Sid will also put into the chat the mural board that we've created, so that we can capture all the outputs that all these conversations are bringing, because some of you might want to look through what other rooms came out with, but also we can share it widely in the SIG. So please click onto the link of the mural board before you go into your breakout room, so that you are already there in that space. And then you will know, of course, what sort of rooms you are in to be able to capture your discussions as you go along. Okay, so we'll pause. Any questions before we head off? Before we say Maria to do her magic to send us off? Okay, I give 30 seconds silence. Silence means go ahead. Perfect, Maria. When you're ready, if you can put us in for 20 minutes in the breakouts, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. Sophia and Kerry and Sid, do you want to go into breakout rooms as well, or?
It might be good for us to hang in the central room, and then if anyone's struggling with the tech or with the task, maybe they can click to call us in. I don't know the exact name of the icon, but when you're in a breakout room, there's often a kind of button that says ask for help. Then that means that we can jump in. I suspect that there's probably something like 6 breakout rooms, are there, or 7, I don't know. So there might be quite a few that need help. Is that okay?
Yes, I'm just going to recreate them then. And
whilst you're doing that, I'll just explain the mural. For those that have never used it before, it's an online collaboration tool. Hopefully you can see I'm sharing my screen. Once you go onto the page, then there's an outline on the right-hand side. If that's not there, then you go to the right top and there's these kind of little boxes there that says outline. If you click on that, it lets you go to your group. You're going to breakout room 3, for instance, click on group 3. You're going to breakout room 4, go to group 4. And then you can see there's a space for you to add different reflections based on what Sophia's just asked you. If you double click in there, it lets you add post-it notes, or you can drag it in. I'm sure someone in your room will be able to help, if not. And there's the link to the improvement journey at the top, so you've got that to reflect.
okay, brilliant. I'm ready to send everyone off. Okay. Rooms are open.
Okay.
Brilliant. Looks like everybody is back, I think. Yeah, I think the rooms are all closed. Lovely. Welcome everyone back. Hope everyone had a good conversation. We've seen quite a lot come on the mural board, so that only shows that the conversations were quite rich, and hopefully it'll be sort of meaningful for everybody. What we thought is maybe spend a little time just to sort of hear from each of the groups. What did you hear happening in your group? And if you can maybe focus maybe one thing, from your enablers, because I'm sure the other groups might want to hear what happened in their sort of areas that they could pinch with pride, I always say, and what are some of the challenges, and there might be common strands and themes within the challenges. And if there is something on the horizon, please share that, because it could be that somebody else hasn't thought of that. That work is happening, but they've not viewed it as an horizon that's going to help with the coach's work. So I'm going to just go random, and I'm going to go random with starting with odd numbers first. Let's do that, because otherwise everybody goes in the order. So if I say room 1 to start off with, whoever was in room 1, which I think was Jaren, Joshua, Samuel, Wendy, and Wenna. If one of you can maybe just share some highlights from your room, just one each of it. Anyone wants to volunteer, please?
I can share for our room. So we did actually spend quite a bit of time talking about the quality coach program, actually, because Grant and his colleague both obviously down the road of having started that, and we're launching it in June. So it was really valuable for us to be able to share those experiences. I think some of the common challenges that we all expressed was time and permission for staff. And thinking about that moving, much as Sid sort of said at the start, moving from the doing and doing a lot of the facilitating for people to actually that coaching and mentoring sphere. So thinking about how to do that. In terms of enablers, we had that staff who've undertaken quality improvement work have seen the value in it. We felt that was really important. And then just thinking about next steps, obviously, as I mentioned, as a trust, we're starting the quality coach program in June. And then another next step was for getting board support for quality improvement and buy into the quality improvement strategic vision.
Lovely. Thank you, Wenna. Okay, let's move to room 3, which had Ellie, Kedar, and Susan. You probably lost somebody in the bargain. Someone has gone, because we had 4 there, I think. Anyone from room 3 would like to walk us through?
I'm happy to sort of speak. We had quite a robust discussion, and we did have someone outside of healthcare, so she was coming at it from a veterinary perspective. And sorry, I'm just rubbish with names, and that name's gone out of my head. Apologies. But we had a really good discussion about absolutely what our enablers as enthusiasms. I think we were all a bit on the same page with some of the challenges in terms of senior leader and board understanding of QI. But also it was also that buy-in from different divisions. So we really discussed that silo working, that you can develop somebody within one division, but they won't be able to go across and share, or in one team, and they can't get out to share in other teams. I mean, the QA central team can do that, but you don't get that out on the shop floor. And then our next steps was one of the discussions was about leadership modeling, and getting that leadership to model that QI capacity, taking time and using the terminology, and basically modeling it at that higher level so that it becomes a little bit more, it's not a discussion about how much time, it's the way things are done. And that was sort of where we focused on.
Really lovely. Thank you, Susan. Right, moving on to room 5. Abigail, Heather, Rachel, and Rob. One of you want to walk us through, or all of you can walk us through?
I can make a start on it. We had lots of really interesting discussions, and kind of forgot that we were supposed to be putting stuff on post-it notes. But I think a lot of it sort of was reflects what some of the other groups have been saying around the importance of the kind of the executive or role in this, and making sure that the execs see the value of QI and of improvement, and by extension of QI coaching. And one of the things we were talking about is the role of kind of the external expert, who may be saying exactly the same thing as you are, but the concept of the prophet not being valued in their own land, but sometimes getting executives to sort of external meetings or bringing external experts in can maybe sort of reinforce the message. We had actually some interesting discussions around trying to define what actual QI coaching is, in its sort of strictest sense, and how it differs from sort of training or facilitation, and that a lot of what passes for QI coaching, or even training in QI coaching, is not necessarily teaching you how to be a good coach. It's really trying to just teach you QI principles, and that also led to a sort of discussion around, like, do you actually have to have a piece of paper saying that you were a QI coach? Because I think a lot of us do a lot of coaching without necessarily having that, so defining how how the coaching is defined, and how the training for coaches is delivered, I think is an important point. So I don't know if anybody else from the group wants to highlight anything else that we were discussing. I think most other things we were talking about were sort of have been touched on by the other groups as well.
I think you did a good overview there, Rob. We did talk a little bit. We were talking about the International Forum at the beginning, actually. She says guiltily. But actually getting your execs to go on to the International Forum might be quite a good way of getting them engaged. Yeah, we had some good conversations. Didn't solve it all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there are some good sort of nuggets of solutions that we are hearing for everyone to kind of go and embark on it. Brilliant, lovely. Thank you, Rob, and thank you, Rachel, from room 5. If you move to room 2, which had Gail, Karen, Liz, and Sullen. Anyone from that room?
I'm
happy
happy,
or Sulan.
Oh, can do a double act. So some of the enablers we talked about were, I think this one was my trust, having kind of bottom up and top down QI simultaneously really helped to kind of really help the board to see the benefits of and using an improvement approach. Like many others, we haven't completely got that board sign up. It's sort of trying to take them more by stealth, slowly. But having that kind of top-down exposure to the things that are really important to the organisation helps to see the value of QI. It helps where you've got kind of well-attended training and obviously people who are, as you said before, have the QI bug. I am on the Quality Coach Development Programme, so I was sharing a bit of insights with the group around that. We had a discussion around kind of what that is and how that could potentially be used to embed coaching. And we talked a bit about NHS impact as well as being a huge kind of lever for QI. And, you know, we were sort of reflecting it was a shame that that self-assessment no longer became mandatory. So we spent a bit of time talking about that. In terms of biggest challenges, it was the kind of board engagement and time and capacity, as others have said. For some organisations in the group, there were other sort of priorities, for example, CQC or the kind of current financial state of the organisation, which have sort of taken precedence. And then in terms of next steps, we talked a bit about dosing models and where coach program might fit within our existing models and where there were gaps, and next steps to kind of really secure that buy-in from the board, because that was really the key thing to progress in this. I don't know if anyone else from the group wanted to add anything.
Yeah, we talked a lot about the different types of training, and everyone chatted about like the bronze, silver, gold, so lots of different types, and maybe joining up. I was saying in Scotland they've got something called SCLIP, Scottish Leading Improvers, which maybe is a bit like your QI coaching program, but I'm going to take a look at your slides because it's a really good title. Sounds great.
Yeah, brilliant, lovely.
And Sulan mentioned a reference. Was it? How do we look for it? Was it Emma Shaw about QI, about dosing approaches?
Oh, Emma Shaw. Yeah, I think there was something recently published around kind of dosing models, and QI coaching clearly has a place within that. Yes, so someone put in the chat, Emma Shaw is the quality leader at Elft, but is also the new national clinical director for NHS Impact.
Brilliant, lovely. Thank you, Sulan, and thank you, Karen. And moving on to the last room, which is room 4, which had Claire, Tanya, and Yvonne.
I can feedback from that room. Quite similar conversations, really. So we were talking about the things that you would enable in terms of having a strategy. One of the trusts who were involved in our group, and they've got a management system with the quality strategy, obviously underpinning and supporting that. And then we spoke about I guess the foundations you need in order to have QI coaches. You need people who've had lots of experience in QI, not just people who've kind of come straight from training. Even if that training meant that there was experience of QI, it's more than just that limited experience. So actually having that time period before where you're building some confidence and capability in QI so that people have that experience they can take into a coaching role then. And we also said that a part of how you can do that is having that methodology as well, that people have that shared understanding and common language within your trust. So they were some of the enablers. some of the biggest challenges, which sounds like we're kind of echoing what other groups are saying, is that buy-in from kind of board, leadership, in terms of not seeing QI as a separate thing. It's kind of seeing, I guess one of the challenges is currently seeing it as a thing that you do as well as your day job, but actually we want to try and change that mindset and change that culture that QI is part of everything that we do. We're always thinking about improvement. And part of that as well then is leaders given that time and permission to build up those skills, going to training, but also to build up that experience. Yeah, I don't know if anyone else wants to add anything I've missed. I think that was it. Thank you.
Yeah. Brilliant. I think common themes in all the rooms, isn't it? The enablers and the challengers can be sitting in any of the two buckets around strategic direction, strategic sort of buy-in, having some kind of an infrastructure of QI already put in place, which could be an enabler, and your challenges that you don't have the time to do the coaching. I think that could be, you know, the biggest barrier and challenger for most of us to be doing that. But I think there is the new horizon. We've got, I know the NHS impact, we don't have to submit, but I think pivoting that, we in our organization have used that to pivot with our chief exec, sort of saying, look, this is where we are, chief exec. We have a long journey to go. What are you going to do about it? And so forth. So I think thinking through the challenges and the barriers that we have could almost become your enablers if you seek those opportunities through the new horizons, is what I'm reading through the board. So really, thank you, everybody. I think a great discussion and great input. I'm sure Sid will be able to PDF those mural boards and send out as handouts with the slides at some point. So what we wanted to do next, and I'm going to hand you over to Sid to kind of just talk through. Sid kind of mentioned some of those sort of bit of advice that he has from his experience, and he'll just walk us through a little bit of a few of the ending slides if you know that's useful for you to start thinking about what's worked with Sid. Could that be one for me? So I'll hand it over to you, Sid, now.
Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, everyone, for your contributions. It's always lovely just to connect with people, isn't it, through Q, and hear about our challenges, our successes, etc. We're probably all thinking the same thing about NHS impact and quality management systems as well. So just a few bits of advice. I won't dwell on this too much. I think I've already touched on the first couple already in my conversation so far, which is go where the QI bug is, go where the passion is. You know, don't try, you know, if you're starting your journey of QI coaching in particular, don't, you know, shove it down people's throats. I think it's always nice to kind of capitalize on the enthusiasm and the energy. That's absolutely what we did, and it was very helpful to be able to get that honest feedback, to kind of see what it looked like on the ground, because we were working with people that we knew and that really understood and valued QI. And as we did that, we built the justification for change and kind of started to get that snowball effect of people really understanding what QI coaching is about and perhaps even wanted to do it themselves. So really touched on that. I think as well, you know, for us, we did start from a place where we had a QI team who, especially as we were formed in COVID, you know, most of us joined when we started the QI coach program. Most of us joined in the middle of the pandemic, redeployed, you know, feeling quite disconnected from one another, coming from very different backgrounds and experiences, as often is the case in the NHS and in the community sector. So for us, it was really important that we got our house in order. We all knew, as Rob was saying, you know, what is a QI coach and what is the difference between coaching and mentoring and training and facilitating and supervising and advising and all these different things. There is a difference, and it's important to make sure we try to bring some form of consistency and quality in what we do. We wanted that assurance that our own team were providing that good quality coaching and role modeling it. So that was important for us. I think for us to get that buy-in, it was a gradual thing. It's still ongoing. It's not perfect. You know, we still have some resistance, as you would expect. We were clear on the benefits to try and, you know, not this year perhaps, but next year get someone involved, or maybe in 3 years' time. You know, we knew that it was we may lose some battles, but we were trying to win the war. And so being clear on the benefits and being clear on the benefits to different groups of people was really important to us. So yes, there are benefits to CLCH where I work by having a coach, but sometimes that doesn't resonate with me. What's the benefits? If I'm operational, I'm running a service or managing several services, how do I benefit? How do my services benefit? But also, what's the benefit to an individual going through this program? Because it is a lot to ask of someone. For those of you that have looked at the resources for the Quality Coach program, you know, it's a big undertaking to deliver this program, but it's also a big undertaking to be on the receiving end of that program and to commit to being a QI coach. So do we convey those well to the person going through this program so they really understand what they're buying into, but also hopefully what they'll get out of it and the benefits they'll bring to their patients and their colleagues. And I'll go through the rest as I go through. So benefits. The Quality Coach program, as I've said already, it's a publicly available resource. So it's not something that you need to kind of go through a paywall or anything for. I will, sorry, I'm just going to pop the link in the chat. I'll pop the link in the chat to the whole program, and you can have a look at your own leisure. There's also a link to a webinar on there from us through Q talking about this resource. So watch it at your own pace if you want to. And there's all sorts of resources that underpin this. So there's slides, guides, etc., activity templates, the whole shebang. And one of the guides is called the applicant guide. And so this is someone who's considering this program. And within that, the people who wrote this, so my colleagues Hannah and Sam, convey the benefits to the individuals on the program, but also to teams and services, to patients and to the organization. And so on these slides, which we will absolutely share with anyone who's come to this session and through the SIG, you can see some of the benefits. I'm not going to kind of read these out in any great detail for now, but just to say, you know, it's important to think about who benefits and how, and at those different levels. So benefits to the individuals, benefits to the colleagues is that if you have a coach embedded within a service, then you're empowering, you're kind of sending the message that QI is for everyone and that there's that local line of support. So that instead of having to go out to the central QI team and go on some training and go through quite a few different hurdles, maybe things get lost in the ether, maybe, you know, that person doesn't have capacity, you have someone ready to go, someone, you know, friendly, familiar, trusted face to help you to improve. And as that person is kind of embedded within the service, they hopefully will be kind of championing QI and be able to spread the good word and spread the QI bug. So benefits are, like I said, these are lifted from that resource, and I've just put them on the slides for you and added a really lovely picture there of people high-fiving. That's what, if you have a QI coach, everyone's going to be doing that every day where you work. So good news all around. And then benefits to organization as well. As Kerry said right at the start, there's a gap in organizations between the front line and between us, assuming you're in a QI team, between the central QI team, and QI coaches bridge that gap. They are part of a dosing model, as Sulan had said. If you kind of have a dosing model, you know, bronze, silver, gold, level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever you have, QI coaches are one of those levels at least, and they are there to be that kind of connection so that you are able to support people, but also as improvers in a central team, your ear is kept to the ground, because QI coaches tell you things that maybe people on your improvement practitioner program or leadership might not tell you. And so you really get to really know the organization in a real kind of true sense, really understand the culture. It embeds the culture of continuous improvement because it sends the message that QI is everybody's business. It helps. We were talking, Kerry, Sophia, Maria and I, while you're in your breakout rooms, we're having a very lively chat, as we always do. And we were talking about you know, the current challenges in the NHS financial situation, all these things that I'm sure is very familiar to you. I've seen a few wry smiles. You know, now is the best time to focus on our staff, to invest in our staff. Often organizations make a mistake of neglecting staff and their development and leadership development and QI at these challenging times. And when we do that, the ultimate cost is that we lose these people. They go to work somewhere else, or we lose their energy and enthusiasm, and they kind of fall back into the shadows. And so now is the right time, more than ever, to upskill and invest in our staff. And what better way of doing that than through a program like the QI Coach program or other similar programs. And obviously, as it says there, it helps to build capacity without having a bloated, as Kerry said, a bloated QI team. You know, where I work, we've got however many of us, you know, a small number of us in the QI team, I think 8 or 10 or something. And, you know, it's hard to remember because we don't all work full time. but we could easily have argued to have 20 of us because the demand is so high, but we know that that's not the best use of resource. It's not the best use of taxpayer money. And actually, we know that QI coaching is the right thing to do. So have a look at that resource evaluation guide. Have a look at all the other resources if you haven't. Best place to start is to have a look at the program leader guide, knowing that every single person who I've shown this resource to looks at the slides first, because that's who we are. We like to look at slides. Feel free to do that, but then very quickly go to the program leader guide because it explains the program in detail and how to use it. Now, for us in CLCH, we had some stumbling blocks. We had some teething issues as we implemented this role and developed people. One of them was that we hadn't actually formally thought about the relationship the QI team has to the QI coaches and how QI coaches are supported during and beyond the program. So questions that emerged were, okay, so you're training someone as a coach. How do they actually get projects to coach? Where do those projects come from? How do you get assurance that these coaches are doing well in their role and they feel competent and confident, as well as being competent and confident? They feel competent and confident in the space that they have with teams that they're supporting. How do you celebrate all their good work? How do you kind of showcase the success so that we continue to grow this role, etc.? And how do they keep connected and fresh in QI beyond graduating from the program? So for us, we really thought about this quite a lot in partnership with our first cohort of coaches, where we sat down and said, how can we help you and what's our relationship and so on. And that was a really fruitful discussion. And some of it is very informal and led by them fully. So obviously being a Q member is a good way for QI coaches to get support, as well as running what are called coaching circles, peer coaching, through to kind of having more formal structures in place. Like, we have a supervision structure where the QI team supervise the QI coaches within their division. So QI person in our team is aligned to a division, and that person is responsible for the QI coaches in their particular patch, and that includes pastoral and professional support around QI coaching, etc. So we really needed to think about the space and the support that we provide. If we didn't do that, and as we started to see it unravel a bit, QI coaches, the risk is they're not very good. They're out there doing stuff and actually they're not coaching in a way that you would like, or that they're kind of able to do as much as you would hope, or that they're feeling really unconfident, and that's really rubbish for them to be put into a position where they lack that confidence to be able to support people. But also it's very easy and quick to de-skill. And so we need to make sure that we're providing a space for people to continue in that QI space. We as improvers have Q and we have each other, but what else is out there for people to develop, and for ourselves as well? So we really made sure that we thought about that. And obviously as well, there was all the logistical stuff, like how do you get projects? So that was a bit of a thinker. That was something we had to be quite clever about. And so kind of on that note, we were very strategic about the way that we used QI coaches in our organization. I use the word used in just a functional sense. It's not in that real sense that we're not using and abusing them. It's absolutely a collaborative thing. But we were very strategic. And so what we did, but we had to be really, really, really good at planning this, is we ran a cohort, or we do run cohorts of the quality coach program. As you know, that's 8 days of teaching if it's in its kind of existing format. Then that tends to run over a kind of 6 to 9 month period, if you run it every kind of fortnight or month-ish. And so we run that program, but at the same time, well, we stagger it, but a bit later than the program, we run a breakthrough series collaborative and QI training focused on a strategic improvement priority. So for us, that was staff morale, joy in work, health inequalities. The really important stuff that the Trust wants us to help with, we can help with that. And by the way, we have people to help us who are embedded in those services. They're called quality coaches. And so for us, it was a real kind of marriage and match made in heaven, where we could do bottom up and top down at the same time, using capacity that we otherwise didn't have. And so this was very helpful for us to be able to A, source work for them to coach, but B, tackle things that matter really to us and to our staff and to our organization. There is a caveat, like I said, this is a complex thing to plan. Happy to have a chat if you're kind of thinking of doing this. I'm more than happy to share my perspective on this and some of the hiccups that we had and some pointers. And then just being strategic, we've already covered this. Can your coaches be leveraged to support things like PSERF, and also is our coaches a good response? Kerry, we were talking about this while you're in the break rooms, but Kerry was saying, this for her quality coach development program, QI coaching, is what is the answer to one of the main domains of NHS Impact about building capacity and capability. So if you're in England, this is obviously mostly focused on England, although if you're outside England, it's all the same. Can you leverage your coaches to support patient safety improvement work, patient safety challenges that you're facing around pressure ulcers, falls, medication safety, etc. And also, can they be a great way of kind of building that capacity and capability in a kind of structured and formal way? Now, some homework, we're all adults, so maybe I shouldn't call it that, self-directed learning. Some reflections for you are maybe after this session, as you make a cup of tea later on today, or as you're kind of on the drive home from work or the drive to work tomorrow or something like that. It would be lovely if you could just reflect on the session and just ask yourself, what's one thing that I can do differently based on this? What's one step I can take? And it might be as simple as, Karen, you said about the resources and being not familiar with them, going on that link that's in the chat and which I think I posted in the chat, go in the link that's in the chat, and having a look at those resources. That could be it for you, it could be it for everyone, or it could be something entirely different, like using the improvement journey to be able to reflect on how you're going in your QI1. Have you jumped straight to number 4 of the 6 steps, and have you kind of skipped over those ones? Could you have a conversation we were talking about non-exec director support, to be able to kind of get them to whisper in the ear of exec directors? Can you get them as a kind of key champion of what you do? That's obviously for you to decide, but wouldn't it be lovely if you could do that? And then finally, very, very last thing. Firstly, thank you, Maria, for everything you do. As always, thank you, obviously, Sophia and Kerry. You're always brilliant. We, as a group of conveners for this SIG, have one main ask, which is we've spoken a lot. Hopefully you found that helpful. But we are only 3 people with 3 different perspectives, but still only 3 people. We want to hear from you. So we'd love for you to reach out to any of us or all of us through Q or through our email addresses. They're in the chat. And just drop us a line. We want you to showcase your work and to kind of share your journey. And what we don't need is perfect journeys. They don't exist. We want the warts and all, and it's okay to do that. We don't have to record the sessions. We can have these conversations in breakout rooms if that's better for you. But if at all possible, please reach out, because we have some plans, and the plans are to showcase and share and reflect on our journeys around QI coaching. And as a bonus, we'll do some spotlighting on that quality coach program, do some teaching. I'll pick a topic that I love and come with that, and maybe others of you who have done that program. So Sulan on the quality coach, national train the trainer. Susan, you've just done it. A few different people can come and we can share our different insights into that. So we'll bolt that on to the end as well, if that's okay. And if you can join the SIG, if you're not a part of the special interest group, Maria's put it in the chat. And that's it for now. Thank you, as ever. Thank you, Sophia. Kerry, do you have anything to add before we close?
Yeah, I was just going to add, Sid, one of the things that came up both as an enabler and a challenge is that exec commitment and board commitment, and how do you get that right, and so forth. So I'm just on, I know we've not captured that as a future topic. Maybe there is something, if we can, within our own organizations, encourage our exec directors to actually come and talk. If they've been successful, how did they get that exec buy-in? And maybe we invite them into one of the future SIGs. That might be another useful storytelling that might be powerful. I mean, I can ask my exec, and I'm sure he'd probably join it, but we are quite early in our journey, but that might be a good one to hear. So just a
challenge accepted.
Out there.
Yeah, challenge accepted. I'll try. Good. Thank you, everyone. I can see those people dropping off. So thank you, everyone. We've run over a bit. You've got my contact details in the chat, and we'll loop into each other. Always happy to have a chat.